The school gym buzzed with the low murmur of parent voices as Parker Hayes straightened his worn tie, suddenly wishing he'd had time to iron his only dress shirt before rushing to Lily's parent-teacher night. 8 years as a single dad had taught him efficiency, but tonight, after covering an extra shift at the construction site and racing across town, he'd barely had time to splash water on his face before collecting his daughter from the neighbor's apartment. "Dad, miss. Wellington said she really wants to meet you." 10-year-old Lily tugged at his hand, her eyes bright with excitement. "She's the coolest teacher ever, and she said my science project was the best in class." Parker smiled down at his daughter, her enthusiasm momentarily washing away his fatigue. "Lead the way, kiddo." As they navigated through clusters of parents in business attire that made his faded khakis and scuffed work boots feel even more out of place, Parker reminded himself that appearances didn't matter. What counted was that Lily was thriving at Westbrook Elementary despite their financial struggles since her mother had walked out on them when Lily was just 2. "There she is." Lily pointed toward a woman with her back turned, engaged in conversation with another parent. Even from behind, something about the woman's posture, the elegant slope of her shoulders beneath a simple navy blazer, the way she tilted her head slightly when listening stirred a distant memory in Parker. When she laughed, the sound reached across the room and hit him like a physical force. He knew that laugh. The woman turned, and Parker felt the floor shift beneath his feet. Hannah Wellington froze mid-sentence, her professional smile faltering as her eyes met his. 20 years melted away in an instant, and they were suddenly 18 again, making promises under a summer sky neither of them had kept. "Parker." Her voice was barely audible over the din of the crowded gymnasium. Lily looked between them, her brow furrowed in confusion. "You know my dad." Hannah recovered first, extending her hand with practiced poise that hadn't existed when Parker had known her. "Mr. Hayes, it's wonderful to finally meet you. Lily is one of my brightest students." Parker accepted her handshake, the formal gesture feeling absurdly inadequate given their history. Her hand was warm, soft, familiar, and foreign all at once. "Thanks. She talks about your class constantly." The awkwardness hung between them until Lily broke it. "How do you guys know each other?" "We went to high school together," Hannah replied, her tone carefully neutral. Parker managed a nod, still processing the shock. "Hannah Wellington, here, teaching his daughter's 5th grade class." The same Hannah who had been his first love, who had cried when they'd parted ways for college, promising to make long-distance work. The same Hannah who had stopped answering his calls 3 months into their freshman year. "Lily, why don't you show your father your science project display in the corner?" Hannah suggested, her professional demeanor firmly back in place. "I need to speak with a few more parents, but perhaps we could catch up later." "Sure, Miss Wellington." Lily grabbed Parker's hand again, pulling him toward the science fair display area. "Dad, isn't she amazing? She used to work in some big company before becoming a teacher." Parker allowed himself to be led away, his mind spinning with questions. Hannah Wellington, teaching elementary school. The Hannah he'd known had been headed for a business degree, determined to break glass ceilings in corporate America. Throughout the evening, Parker found himself stealing glances at Hannah as she moved gracefully among parents, her confident smile never wavering. She'd changed. The carefree girl he'd known had transformed into a poised, self-assured woman. But when she laughed, he still caught glimpses of the Hannah he'd once known, the one who had shown him what love felt like before it all fell apart. 2 hours later, as the event wound down, Parker was helping Lily gather her project materials when Hannah approached them. "Mr. Hayes, could I speak with you for a moment?" she asked, and Parker noticed she had shed the blazer, revealing a simple blouse that somehow looked both modest and elegant. "Sure," he replied, turning to Lily. "Can you pack up the rest of your stuff, kiddo?" When they stepped a few feet away, Hannah's professional facade softened. "This is unexpected. You're telling me," Parker said with a half smile. "Last I heard, you were climbing the corporate ladder at some tech firm in Boston." Something flickered across her face, surprise, perhaps, before she nodded. "Life takes unexpected turns. I've been teaching for 2 years now." Lily adores you. She's never been this excited about school before. Hannah's smile reached her eyes this time. She's brilliant, Parker. Her critical thinking skills are off the charts and she has such compassion for her classmates. You've done an amazing job with her. Pride warmed his chest. I can't take all the credit. She's just naturally incredible. A brief silence fell between them, heavy with unspoken history. Listen, Hannah said finally. Would you like to grab coffee sometime to catch up properly? There's a lot I'd like to explain. Parker hesitated. The rational part of him warned against reopening old wounds, but another part he thought he'd buried long ago stirred with curiosity. I'd like that. They exchanged numbers, the simple act feeling strangely significant, and agreed to meet that weekend. As Parker drove home with Lily chattering excitedly about her teacher's praise, he couldn't shake the feeling that his carefully structured life was about to change. Saturday morning arrived with a crisp autumn breeze. Parker dropped Lily at her weekend art class, grateful for the scholarship that made it possible, and headed to the coffee shop where he'd agreed to meet Hannah. He spotted her immediately, seated by the window, stirring a mug of something steaming. She'd exchanged her teacher attire for jeans and a cream sweater, her dark hair falling in loose waves around her shoulders. For a moment, he allowed himself to remember how it had felt to run his fingers through that hair, to feel it brush against his chest when she'd fallen asleep on him during late-night study sessions. Sorry I'm late, he said as he approached. Lily's art class is across town. Hannah looked up with a warm smile. No worries, I just got here myself. After ordering a black coffee, the cheapest item on the menu, Parker settled into the chair across from her, suddenly unsure where to begin. So, they both said simultaneously, then laughed, breaking the tension. You first, Parker offered. Hannah wrapped her hands around her mug. I owe you an explanation for how things ended between us. I was young and stupid and scared. It was 20 years ago, Hannah. Still. She met his gaze directly. You deserved better than being ghosted. My parents had just divorced, and my dad was pressuring me about making connections that would advance my career. He introduced me to some executive's son at a networking event, and she trailed off, looking ashamed. You met someone else, Parker finished for her. I did. And instead of being honest with you, I took the coward's way out. By the time I realized what a mistake I'd made, months had passed, and I figured you'd moved on. Parker absorbed this, surprised by how little the old pain stung now. Life happens, we were kids. What about you? Lily mentioned her mom isn't in the picture. Parker took a sip of his coffee before answering. Melissa and I got married right after college. Things were good for a while. Then Lily came along and Melissa realized she wasn't cut out for motherhood. She left when Lily was 2. Hannah's expression softened with sympathy. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was. But Lily and we figured it out. I was working as a project manager for a construction firm then. Had to step back to a regular crew position after Melissa left. The hours were more flexible for childcare, even if the pay was less. He shrugged, uncomfortable discussing his financial situation. We manage. Lily's lucky to have you, Hannah said, and the sincerity in her voice made something tighten in his chest. They talked for nearly 2 hours, filling in the gaps of 20 years apart. Parker learned that Hannah had indeed risen through the ranks in the tech world, but she carefully avoided specifics about her current situation. He found himself laughing more than he had in years, remembering why he'd fallen for her in the first place: her quick wit, her thoughtful questions, the way she listened like every word mattered. When they finally parted ways, Parker felt lighter somehow, as if reconnecting with his past had loosened a weight he hadn't known he was carrying. I'd like to see you again, Hannah said as they stood outside the coffee shop. If you want to, that is. Parker hesitated only briefly. I'd like that too. Over the following weeks, they fell into a comfortable pattern. Coffee after Hannah's school day ended while Lily was at her after-school program. Occasional walks in the park on weekends while Lily rode her bike ahead of them. Hannah began helping Lily with her science projects, her enthusiasm infectious as they experimented with vinegar volcanoes and solar system models on Parker's kitchen table. One evening, as Hannah was gathering her things to leave after helping Lily with homework, his daughter blurted out, "Dad, can Miss Wellington stay for dinner? Please?" Parker glanced at Hannah, who looked equally surprised by the invitation. "I'm sure Miss Wellington has plans, Lily." "Actually," Hannah said with a smile, "I don't. And I'd love to stay if it's not imposing." That night, as they shared the simple pasta dish Parker had prepared, he noticed how naturally Hannah fit into their small apartment, how easily she conversed with Lily about everything from space exploration to Taylor Swift. When Lily excused herself to finish a book before bedtime, Parker found himself alone with Hannah in his modest kitchen, suddenly self-conscious of the chipped countertops and aging appliances. "I should help you clean up," Hannah offered, reaching for his plate. "You don't have to do that." "I want to." Her fingers brushed his as she took the dish, and the brief contact sent an unexpected warmth through him. As they stood side by side at the sink, Hannah washing while Parker dried, she asked, "Do you ever think about how different things might have been if we'd stayed together?" The question caught him off guard. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But then I wouldn't have Lily, so I can't regret how things turned out." Hannah nodded, her expression thoughtful. "She's extraordinary, Parker. You should be proud." "I am." He hesitated, then added, "She likes having you around, you know. She hasn't had many women in her life." "I like being around." Hannah handed him the last plate, their fingers touching again, lingering longer this time. "Both of you." When she left that night, Parker found himself standing at the window, watching until her car disappeared around the corner. It was a nice car, he realized, newer model, luxury brand. Nothing flashy, but definitely beyond a teacher's typical salary. He filed the observation away, focusing instead on the warmth that had settled in his chest. The following weekend, Hannah invited them to the Science Museum. When Parker hesitated, mentioning the admission cost, she quickly assured him she had complimentary tickets through the school. It wasn't until they arrived that Parker realized they were being given VIP treatment, with a personal guide taking them behind the scenes to areas normally closed to the public. "How did you manage this?" he whispered to Hannah as Lily excitedly examined a real meteorite fragment with their guide. Hannah shrugged. "I used to do some consulting work for their educational program. They owed me a favor." Later, when Lily raced ahead to the interactive space exhibit, Parker noticed a museum board member greet Hannah warmly, treating her with deference that seemed odd for a fifth-grade teacher. He caught fragments of their conversation, something about funding and board meetings, before Hannah smoothly steered them toward the planetarium. The puzzle pieces began to shift in Parker's mind. The luxury car, the connections. The careful way Hannah avoided discussing specifics about her current life beyond teaching. There was more to her story than she was sharing. His suspicions grew when, 2 weeks later, Hannah suggested taking Lily to a weekend robotics workshop that Parker knew cost several $100s. "It's no problem," she insisted when he expressed concern about the price. "I have a scholarship fund for promising students." That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Parker finally did what he'd been resisting. He searched for Hannah online. What he found left him stunned. Hannah Wellington wasn't just a fifth-grade teacher. She was the former CEO of Tech Future Innovations, one of the fastest-growing tech companies on the East Coast. Articles detailed her meteoric rise through the corporate world, her reputation as a brilliant but compassionate leader, and her shocking decision 2 years ago to step away from her $3.5 million annual salary to pursue teaching. Most recent articles mentioned her continued role as chairperson of the company's board and her substantial ownership stake, estimated to be worth over $80 million. Parker closed his laptop, feeling a strange mixture of betrayal and understanding. Hannah hadn't lied to him. Exactly, she was indeed a teacher now, but she had certainly omitted crucial details about who she was. When Hannah texted the next morning asking if they were still on for their planned hike, Parker replied with a simple, "Need to talk." "Can you come by tonight after Lily's in bed?" That evening, after tucking Lily in with an extra long bedtime story to ensure she'd be asleep, Parker paced his small living room, rehearsing what to say. When Hannah knocked softly at 9, he opened the door to find her looking concerned. "Is everything okay?" she asked, stepping inside. "Your message seemed serious." Parker gestured for her to sit, then remained standing, suddenly unsure how to begin. I know, Hannah, her brow furrowed. Know what? About tech future, about who you really are. He watched her expression shift from confusion to understanding. Why didn't you tell me? Hannah sighed, her shoulders sagging slightly. I was going to. I like being just Hannah with you, not Hannah Wellington, former CEO. When people know about my background, it changes how they see me, how they act around me. You didn't trust me enough to be honest. It wasn't about trust, Parker. She stood, moving closer to him. When we reconnected, I was so happy to be with someone who knew me before all of that, someone who liked me for me, not for my achievements or my bank account. Parker ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I get that, but don't you see how this looks from my side? I've been struggling to make ends meet, working overtime to afford Lily's school supplies, and all this time you've been what? Slumming it with the working class for some kind of authentic experience. Hannah flinched as if he'd struck her. Is that really what you think of me? I don't know what to think. The Hannah I knew wouldn't have hidden something this important. The Hannah you knew didn't exist in a world where people only valued her for her net worth. Her voice was quiet but firm. Do you have any idea what it's like to never know if someone likes you for yourself or for what you can give them? To have every relationship colored by the question of ulterior motives? Parker fell silent, the righteous anger deflating as he considered her perspective. I should have told you sooner, Hannah continued, but I was afraid of losing what we've been building. I'm sorry I wasn't completely forthcoming, but nothing about how I feel about you or Lily is dishonest. How do you feel about us? The question escaped before Parker could stop it. Hannah's expression softened, like I've found something I didn't even know I was missing, like I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. The sincerity in her eyes made Parker's resolve waver. He sat down heavily on the couch. I need some time to process this, Hannah. She nodded, reaching for her purse. I understand. For what it's worth, the teaching is real. I left the corporate world because I wasn't making a difference in the ways that mattered to me. Working with children like Lily, that's what fulfills me now. As she moved toward the door, Parker called after her. Just answer one thing honestly. All those times you helped us, the museum, the robotics class, was that pity? Hannah turned back, her expression pained. No, Parker, that was love. After she left, Parker sat alone in his quiet apartment, her final word echoing in his mind. Love. The same emotion he'd been fighting against since the moment he recognized her laugh across a crowded school gymnasium. For 3 days, Parker maintained his distance, responding to Hannah's messages with polite but brief replies. Lily noticed his mood shift, asking repeatedly why Miss Wellington hadn't been over to help with her science project. She's busy, sweetheart, was all he could offer, not knowing how to explain the complicated adult situation to a 10-year-old. On the 4th day, Parker was working on a residential construction project across town when his phone rang. Seeing Lily's school number, his heart immediately raced. Mr. Hayes, this is the school nurse, came the calm voice when he answered. Lily took a fall during recess and may have sprained her wrist. She's okay, but we'd like you to come check her out, maybe take her for an X-ray. Parker immediately informed his foreman, who nodded in understanding and raced to his truck. 20 minutes later, he burst into the school nurse's office to find Lily sitting with an ice pack on her wrist and Hannah kneeling beside her, speaking in soothing tones. Dad. Lily's face brightened despite her obvious discomfort. Miss Wellington stayed with me the whole time. Hannah stood, giving Parker a hesitant smile. I was on lunch duty when it happened. I hope you don't mind that I stayed. Of course not, Parker replied, surprised by the rush of gratitude he felt. Thank you. After checking Lily's wrist, which was swelling and tender, Parker decided to take her for an X-ray. As they were leaving, Hannah followed them into the hallway. Parker, I have a friend who's an orthopedic specialist. I could call her if you'd like. He tensed, his pride warring with practicality. We'll be fine with the urgent care clinic. Hannah lowered her voice so Lily couldn't hear. Please don't let your issues with me affect Lily's care, doctor. Simmons is one of the best pediatric orthoptists in the state. No waiting, no referral needed, just let me make one call. Looking at Lily's pale face as she cradled her injured arm, Parker swallowed his pride. Okay, thank you. 2 hours later, they sat in Dr. Simmons' private office as she showed them Lily's X-rays, confirming a minor fracture that would require a cast for 4 weeks. Throughout the process, Hannah remained by their side, her presence a quiet support that Parker found himself leaning on more than he wanted to admit. When Lily was occupied with selecting a purple cast color, Hannah touched Parker's arm gently. "I've taken the rest of the day off. Let me drive you both home." Too exhausted to argue, Parker accepted. On the drive back to their apartment, with Lily drowsy from pain medication in the back seat, Hannah broke the silence. "I miss you," she said simply. "Both of you." Parker stared out the window, watching the city pass by. "I miss you too." When they arrived home, Hannah helped get Lily settled on the couch with her favorite blanket and a stack of books within reach. She moved around their small kitchen with ease, preparing sandwiches and tea as if she belonged there. After Lily had fallen asleep, Hannah joined Parker on the tiny balcony off the living room, where he stood watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Thank you for today," he said quietly, "for being there for her. You don't have to thank me for that. I care about her." Parker turned to face her. "I've been thinking about what you said, about why you didn't tell me about your background." Hannah waited, her expression cautious but hopeful. "I get it," he continued. "I don't like it, but I understand why you kept it to yourself. And I realize I've been letting my pride get in the way. Your pride is part of who you are, Parker. Your independence, your determination to provide for Lily on your own terms, those are qualities I admire. But they're also the qualities that make me stubborn and difficult." Hannah smiled. "Sometimes, but mostly they make you the man I'm falling in love with." The words hung between them, honest and unadorned. Parker reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "I'm not used to accepting help," he admitted. "After Melissa left, I had to prove to myself, to Lily, to everyone that we could make it on our own. The idea of depending on someone else terrifies me. It's not dependence to let someone care for you, Parker. It's connection." He looked down at their joined hands, then back at her face, illuminated by the fading sunlight. "I'm falling in love with you too, you know, but I need you to understand something. I can't be kept. I need to stand on my own 2 feet. I would never want to change your independence." "That's not what love is about." Hannah stepped closer, her free hand coming to rest on his chest. "Love is partnership. It's supporting each other's dreams, respecting each other's boundaries, and building something together that neither could create alone." In that moment, looking into her eyes, Parker felt the last of his reservations fall away. He leaned down, closing the distance between them, and kissed her softly. It was both familiar and new, the taste of her, the feeling of coming home after a long journey. When they broke apart, Hannah rested her forehead against his. "So where do we go from here?" "Forward," Parker replied. "Together." In the months that followed, they carefully built a relationship that honored both their pasts and their present. Hannah continued teaching, finding fulfillment in shaping young minds. Parker accepted a promotion to site foreman, balancing his pride in providing for his family with the understanding that love wasn't measured by income. Hannah integrated seamlessly into their lives, her wealth a fact that neither defined nor diminished her. When she offered to help with Lily's college fund, Parker accepted with grace, recognizing it as an act of love rather than charity. When he insisted on paying his own way and contributing equally to their shared experiences, Hannah respected his need for independence. Lily bloomed under their combined care, her natural intelligence nurtured by Hannah's guidance, her confidence bolstered by the stable love that surrounded her. She stopped calling Hannah Miss Wellington at home, switching to Hannah with a grin that suggested she understood more about their relationship than they gave her credit for. 1 year after their reunion at the parent-teacher night, Parker stood in Hannah's kitchen, their kitchen now, in the modest but comfortable house they had chosen together, a middle ground between his apartment and her former luxury condo. Lily was setting the table for dinner, carefully arranging the plates for their special guest. "Is she going to say yes?" Lily asked, her eyes bright with excitement as she adjusted the silverware for the 10th time. Parker touched the small velvet box in his pocket. "I hope so, kiddo." "She will," Lily said with the absolute certainty of an 11-year-old. She loves us." The doorbell rang, and Lily raced to answer it, returning moments later with Hannah's grandmother, the guest of honor for their family dinner. At 85, Alina Wellington remained sharp-minded and observant, immediately noticing the nervous energy in the room. "Something's happening tonight," she declared as Hannah emerged from her home office to greet her. "I can feel it." Hannah kissed her grandmother's cheek. "It's just dinner, Gran." But later, as they lingered over dessert, Parker caught Alina's knowing smile when he rose from his chair and moved to Hannah's side. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for hers. "Hannah," he began, his voice steadier than he expected. "When we were 18, I thought I knew what love was. I was wrong. What I feel for you now after life has shaped us both, after we found our way back to each other, this is real love." Hannah's eyes widened as he lowered himself to one knee, drawing the ring box from his pocket. "You came back into my life when I least expected it and showed me that love isn't about grand gestures or material things. It's about choosing each other, every day." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring. "I don't have millions to offer you, but I have my heart, my loyalty, and my promise to spend every day making you happy. Will you marry me?" Tears spilled onto Hannah's cheeks as she nodded, unable to speak for a moment. "Yes," she finally managed. "Absolutely yes." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, a ring he had saved for months to purchase, Lily threw her arms around them both, and Alina dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. "I knew it," the older woman said with satisfaction. "I told Hannah 20 years ago she was making the biggest mistake of her life letting you go." Hannah laughed through her tears. "You were right, Gran, as usual." Later that night, with Alina settled in the guest room and Lily finally asleep after the excitement, Parker and Hannah stood on their back porch, looking up at the stars. "Are you sure about this?" Parker asked, his arm around her waist. "Marrying a construction foreman when you could have anyone," Hannah turned in his embrace to face him. "I don't want anyone. I want you, the boy who taught me what it means to dream and the man who showed me what it means to build something real." She kissed him softly. "Besides, I think we make a pretty good team." 6 months later, they were married in a simple ceremony in the backyard of their home, with Lily serving proudly as Hannah's maid of honor. Alina sat in the front row, beaming with approval as they exchanged vows beneath an arch Parker had built with his own hands. 2 years after that, they welcomed a son, James, whose arrival completed their family in ways none of them had imagined possible. On quiet evenings, when both children were finally asleep, Parker often found himself marveling at the journey that had brought them here, from teenage sweethearts to strangers to partners building a life rooted in mutual respect and unwavering love. "What are you thinking about?" Hannah asked one such evening, curling against him on the porch swing he'd installed last summer. "About how sometimes life gives you a second chance when you least expect it." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "And how sometimes the best things in life aren't planned at all." Hannah smiled, intertwining her fingers with his. "Like running into your first love at a parent-teacher night, exactly like that." Parker squeezed her hand gently. "Best parent-teacher conference I ever attended." As the stars appeared one by one in the darkening sky, they sat in comfortable silence. Two people who had found their way back to each other against all odds, building a future stronger and more beautiful than either could have imagined alone.